go after the music?
No, just chill.
Nicolás está en
me ha dado el oído y en todos Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming today to remember and celebrate the life of Edward DeSantis. I'm Rosario Hernández. Ed passed away on September the 8th. He is survived by his loving wife, Rosario, his son and daughter-in-law, Tristan and Olivia. Ed was born in Brooklyn, New York, to Michelle and Matia De Santis. His father was a harpist with the New York Symphony Orchestra, and that's where Ed got his love of classical music. He could name a musical score or an opera by hearing only a few bars. We had a conversation about that one time, and I told him that the only thing I could recognize was Beethoven's Fifth. Ta-ta-ta-ta. Excuse me. We often exchanged gifts during our honors faculty Christmas party, and he would always bring a CD of some symphony or an opera. And I was lucky enough to get at least 2 of them. I still have them. In 1972, he married Maria Arancio, and they moved to New Mexico with their adopted baby son, Tristan. It was then that Ed began his teaching career at the University of New Mexico. He was a full-time instructor in the honors program until his retirement, and he also taught graduate courses in the College of Education. At one time, he served as the Associate Dean of the Graduate School and President of the Faculty Senate. In 1996, Ed married Rosario Hernández, a distinguished professor and scholar at the Universidad de Guadalajara, Mexico. He was very happy and very proud of his wife. I remember one time that he was smiling away all by himself, and I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Oh, I'm thinking about Rosario." Ed was a philosopher, a lover of wisdom, not only in his educational pursuits, earning degrees from Fordham and Brown, and his teaching, of course, but in the way that he lived his life. He was a reflective and quiet man. He spoke in hushed tones. I'd never heard him get very loud at all. You often had to lean in and cup your ears to hear him. He reminded me of the vintage E.F. Hutton commercial. When Hutton speaks, everyone listens. He also had a delightful sense of humor and wit, but he could also be audacious and surprising. He had the honor of hooding Rosario when she received her doctorate at UNM. And after he placed the hood over her head, he leaned her over for a genuine Hollywood kiss. Ed was the beloved and much respected professor of many students. He loved his students. The subject of his courses varied from ancient legacy to fine art and to food. But the focus was always on the individual student. Whenever I encountered Ed, whether in the forum, the hallway, in my office, he always talked about the successes of his students. Ed was a loyal, caring educator and a friend to many people, some of whom you will hear from this morning. He will be missed and always remembered fondly for his many kindnesses, his calm demeanor, and his quirky sense of humor.
Welcome everybody, I asked Dr. Rosalyn Otero to read some words from me because and I'm afraid that the motion could interfere. But before that, I want to thank you, all of you, to join me and the Honor College to celebrate the life of my husband. So I'm going to be standing up next to Rosalie, and the memory that I want to share with all of you is how I met Ed.
How I Met Ed DeSantis by Rosario De Santis. I met Edward DeSantis in the summer of 1993 at Hodgen Hall, the historic building on the University of New Mexico main campus, during a graduation ceremony. Back then, I was an international graduate student from Mexico who came to UNM with a group of faculty members from the University of Guadalajara to study for a master's degree through the Latin American program in education. On June of that same year, I attended a graduation ceremony where some of my friends from Mexico were celebrating the end of their graduate studies. Edward was the Dean of Graduate Studies and who gave diplomas to all of the graduates that day. At the end of the event, during the reception, Edward asked Gladys Maresma, the administrative director of the graduate program, "Who's the blonde in the blue dress?" Gladys replied, "Rosario Hernández." Ed, "Is she married to any of the graduates?" Gladys, "No, she's single." Ed reacted as if she had said, "She is free, go get her." Because he replied, "Introduce me to her right now." Gladys immediately came to me, took my arm, and said, "Come with me, someone wants to meet you." And she introduced me to Ed DeSantis. He asked me the classical questions, "What's your name and where are you from?" I said, "My name is Rosario Hernández Castañeda, and I'm from Culiacán, Sinaloa, Mexico." Then I said, "Nice to meet you, and excuse me, but I do not speak English very well." I was about to leave when he shook my hand, squeezed it, and winked at me. Looking into my eyes, he told me, "The pleasure is all mine." I was shocked and thought that such things only happened in Mexico. A few days later, I received a postcard that read, "Dear Rosario, I was very pleased when our mutual friend Gladys Maresma introduced us. I hope not to offend you. I would love to invite you to lunch or dinner to get to know you better." On the card, he listed both his home and office phone numbers. I did not answer. Within weeks, I heard a message on my answering machine. "Hello, Rosario, this is Ed DeSantis. I would love to invite you to lunch or dinner. Please call me back." He again left his phone numbers. I did not call him. Instead, I called Gladys Maresma and I asked her, "Who is this Edward DeSantis?" Gladys eloquently told me, "He is one of the deans of the graduate office. He's a man well respected for his moral standing in the University of New Mexico. He is a very educated person. He's a humanitarian, philosopher." I said, "Oh, Gladys, now you're going to say that he's also a writer and a poet." Weeks later, I finally decided to call him. I was taking 5 graduate seminars in my master's program in education, and I needed a break. So I called Ed and accepted his invitation. That was a month and a half after I had met him. He immediately proposed to meet the next day for dinner. The communication during that first date was a little difficult. I spoke very little English. He spoke very little Spanish, but we both knew some Italian, so we spoke Spanglish Italian. I remember that both of our wine glasses fell, and he said, "Do not worry, that's a sign of good luck." Italians are famous for signs that mean something. We spent a very pleasant evening, and I found him to be a very interesting person. Upon leaving the restaurant, he invited me to walk, and we continued talking for a while. Then he drove me home. When we were walking toward the door of my house, I thought, if this man wants to kiss me, this man will know the flying slap of a Mexican woman. However, when we reached the door, he kissed my hand and he said, "Rosario, buona notte." Above all, he was always a gentleman. Edward called me every day after that first dinner together, often inviting me to go out and walk with him and his dogs. With each passing day, I discovered just how interesting he truly was. 2.5 years later, we got married on May 30th, 1996. One day after we were married, I asked him, "Why did you want to know me? There were much prettier women that graduation day in Hodgen Hall." And he replied, True, that day there were very pretty women. You were not the most beautiful, but you were the one with the happiest face. The face was like the sun, and I knew you'd be with me. When I was single, I always asked God to send me an intellectual with a ponytail. I had always been attracted to older men, well, a little bit older than me. And though Ed was almost 23 years my senior, Ed was Ed. God surpassed all my expectations by sending me Ed. God not only sent me the intellectual with a ponytail I had always requested, but a humanitarian concerned with what happens to people all over the world. A gentle and sensitive man, a professor committed to his students, a responsible and loving husband, a caring friend, a dog lover, a music lover, and defender of all dedicated to art. Edward was a spiritual man who strengthened my faith without indoctrination. I just saw how he lived his faith in his everyday life. Ed was and is a man of extraordinary dimensions who, in addition to all of the above, has had an excellent sense of humor. I had the privilege of having been married to him for over 19 years and had shared his life for over 22. This is something that no one and nothing, not even death, can take away.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leslie Donovan, and I'm going to read a couple of pieces that a couple of people said, but boy, that's a hard act to follow. Wow, what a great story. These are words from Ed's colleague, Vera John Steiner, who is not able to be with us today. And she writes, "It is an honor to share my admiration, deep care, and memories of Ed at this occasion. I first met him in the Graduate Studies Dean's Office in the 80s, where he was known as a staunch advocate for students and a believer in the impact and promise of excellence in education. He was always welcoming, shared his broad intellectual interests, gentle while also impassioned about injustice inside and outside academia. He worked hard for what he believed in, taking on tasks in faculty governments that others shunned. He never seemed hurried in addressing tasks that needed attention. He found time to discuss philosophy and political ideas, drawing on his very broad background in philosophy, literature, and interdisciplinary scholarship. I always wondered how he was able to accomplish all his administrative tasks while also taking time to maintain close relationships with colleagues and being available and supportive to students who needed his counsel. He believed strongly in encouraging women to assume leadership positions. He was able to express his confidence in female abilities, which encouraged us to take chances we would not have taken otherwise. Ed knew how to help people who suffered from unexpected tragedies. He was steady in his support and knew how to handle difficult emotional challenges. He bore his own physical pain with courage and determination. His gentle smile when we met on campus unexpectedly was so reassuring, it always brightened my day. When I mentioned his name to friends we knew in common, we would beam. The honors program was an excellent home for him after he ended his administrative responsibilities. It allowed him to design innovative courses, work closely with students, draw on his broad network of contacts to invite faculty to teach classes they would not have been able to offer in their home departments. Reuben Hirsch and I were grateful that he included us in his choices for the program. When seeing us in the lobby, he always asked about our experience with the students, and when pressed, discussed some of his own experiences. In contrast with many an academic, Ed was always more eager to listen than to try to impress his audience. For me, knowing and spending time with Ed DeSantis was one of the happiest parts of being part of the UNM community. His unique blend of intellectual brilliance and depth with his caring and emotional sensitivity was unique. I am sure I share with all of you my sense of deep loss at his passing. That's what Vera had to say. And then I'm going to read a very brief note from one of Ed's former students, Jessica Bachicha, who majored at UNM in vocal performance, and she now directs a voice program at the Franciscan University of Steubenville in Indiana. And she sent a piece of music that we'll hear right after this. Dr. DeSantis was an important mentor in my life, and his loss saddens me. He opened doors for me to such lovely treasure houses as the poetry of Gerard Manley Hopkins and the ideas of Boethius and Plotinus. He introduced me to the concept of I can never say that, haezitas, or existence, that has since helped to form me as an artist and has taken a major part in my compositional thought process. His kindliness and ardor for the subjects he taught will always remain in my heart. His love of the beautiful, especially in music, still encourages me to strive to create and to give as he did. I wish I could be there for this service, but since I cannot, I send my prayers for Dr. DeSantis' family and for him, that he enjoy the eternal light of God's face. And she sent a song to share in the celebration that she wrote herself and performed for her new album that is currently in production. The song is titled Queen Remembers, and she says it is about, quote, a dearly departed one with bittersweet remembrance of the beauty of that person.
Voice of Jessica Bachicha, one of the dearest students.
Did I'm Cheo Torres and came to the university about 20 years ago. And the first person that I met was Fernando Maresma and his dear wife, Gladys. And they're the ones that introduced me to Ed. And what a wonderful experience it was. He became my mentor. I would call Ed often for advice. Sometimes he started with a story, and he would say, "What did you learn?" What a wise person. And we would discuss topics like religion, politics, and music. I learned my lesson not to argue with him about any of those topics. So I would just listen. You know, he grew up in the church. He was from New York, so he knew politics. And of course, he grew up with music. What a wonderful mentor he was. I was invited to his home a few times to celebrate someone's birthday, whether it was Rosario's or Fernando's or someone else. And we would have a great meal, and I believe he was a cook, Rosario. Yeah. And Rosario was his assistant. He was a great cook, had great conversations, always had music, and sometimes live music, and at times we danced. So today's memorial is so appropriate to the things that Ed loved. One time he came to me and said, "I'd like to propose to President Caldera." Remember President Caldera? He was Secretary of the Army. He was Director of the Military Police. That explains it, everything. He was tough as nails. I could never get any proposals approved. And Ed said, "I'd like to approach President Caldera for a faculty club." I said, "Well, good luck, Ed. I wouldn't do it." He said, "Well, I'm going to do it." And I believe he was president of the Faculty Senate. Yes. And 3 weeks later, the president announces a faculty club. So I called Ed. I said, "Ed, how did you do this?" He said, "I'll never tell you." So, Rosario was kind enough to share the book of memories, and I'd like to read a few quotes from the many dear friends and students that explains very much about Ed. He was young at heart. He treated me with respect. One of those Thanksgiving days, we ate, we talked, we sang, and we danced. Even the dog danced. He was adept at recognizing the arena of opera. We shared church and classical music. Ed had a very keen sense of the ridiculous. He was one of the most gentle colleagues. He had a sharp sense of moral right and wrong. He deeply valued and respected his students. He inspired me during every class. He always found a way to challenge me. He taught me how to learn, how to teach, and how to enjoy life. We met at the frontier every Sunday after Mass with friends from all over the world. His passing left me with a feeling of emptiness. The world is better because of Ed. All these are wonderful testimonials that described our dear friend Ed. And right now, I'm sure that Ed is looking down at us, just like this photograph, and waving at us and saying, "Thank you, friends. Thank you, Rosario. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, Carol and Leila and Jessica, and all of my dear friends that are here."
An email to Ed. As you said of John, it's okay to think about him in the present tense. So I will think of you in that way too. Our discussions about how the star is not what it used to be, how much Trump's cruel rise is like Hitler's, the brutality of deportation, the corporatization of pedagogy, and the next season of Father Brown continue. You say Chesterton is enshrined in your childhood memories, But open-minded and curious as ever, you ask Inspector Morse in, probably because he loves Wagner and Mozart as much as you do. One of my former students emailed me about you, reminding me that she was also one of yours. She asked me to tell you that she is still taking your advice about her parents, still with her wife, still playing the piano and composing, still thinking about returning for her MA, and still dreaming of the day she will celebrate Mass, hear confessions, and officiate at gay weddings. I'm sorry you did not get to see the Pope come and go, address Congress, shame Boehner into more than crocodile tears, and continue to link climate change to economic injustice. But I know you are following the news and are still upset about the loss of the Dominican nuns, and are absolutely furious with Netanyahu. I hope you and John are listening to music together, jazz as well as classical, and that he has finally convinced you that Star Trek is the social justice opera that proves science fiction is a worthy form for truth-telling. We are nothing without love, passion, compassion, and hope. You continue to remind me, and your kidding, chiding, cajoling, and laughter keep me from hearing only the bitter and sorrowful. It is hard to be pedantic when you never let me take myself too seriously. Hard to be strident in the face of your humility and courage. Hard to go dark in your light. I have always been the fool in the presence of your wise fool, your holy fool, and the jester in the court of your real majesty. Tell Elijah I said, remember to water the horses, and that like Francisco, he drives way too fast. Next email after episode 1, final season of Downton, I'll tell Dame Maggie you said hi. Love and blessings, Mara. P.S. You were right about Wolf Hall. Very good, but slow.
Good morning, friends, honors faculty, family. I'm honored to be here and to have this opportunity to share a few thoughts and memories. I believe Dr. DeSantis possessed a very rare gift, the ability to bridge the transcendent and, for lack of a better word, worldliness. That is, the practical, the material, the fleeting and desperate trials of life on earth. I think it is ordinary for many to choose only one of these realms as our dwelling place, and whether out of convenience or fear, to resist or refuse any call to journey between the two. But I think a few choose to go back and forth and to share with us what they glimpse from the other side, reluctant to hear it as we may be. I think those who do this have a willingness to tolerate the sharp contrasts that divide the heavens from life on this earth, and I think that is an uncommon strength. Dr. DeSantis had this strength. I believe it was a source of his wisdom, his compassion, and his refusal to respond to injustice with resignation or with cynicism. And so while pondering what to say this morning, I stumbled across the incisive epigraph to Walden. I do not propose to write an ode to dejection, but to brag as lustily as Chanticleer in the morning, standing on his roost, if only to wake my neighbors up. I met Dr. DeSantis at the honors program orientation before my freshman year, and had him as a teacher that year for a class called Legacy of the Outsider. In that class we read and he taught us notes from the underground. He illustrated to us that education is much more than a means to ever-growing economic productivity or a large income or any other number of tropes we hear over and over. After that, well, we worked together planning the memorial service of one of his students and a dear friend of mine, John Smeltzer. Dr. DeSantis told me that we as a culture are ever fearful of the loss of youth and of the final journey we all must take. And I remember very clearly what he said about John. He said, "You know, he is all around us now." Of course, Dr. DeSantis also knew the place for bluntness and practicality. Upon encountering me one day on campus eating a meal that may have consisted of fast food, he went out of his way to walk up to me just to announce, "You should eat some fruit and learn how to cook." And that's a lesson I'm still learning. And let us not forget, in this era of constant saturation from evanescent and fickle pop, Dr. DeSantis was a beacon of hope for classical music. I strive to know that a grander design than meets the eye undergirds the many challenges I face, and that my goals fall in alignment with that grand design. I felt in touch with that design because I had Dr. DeSantis as a teacher. I believe Dr. DeSantis is all around us now, and we should not forget that the heavens are in our midst, no matter the appearances we face.
Good morning, everybody. Today I will speak from my heart, so then I will apologize because I will express myself in Spanish, which is my heart language. I'm a good friend of Ed and Rosario, and that's why I'm here. So, tuve el placer de conocer a Ed a través de Rosario muchos años atrás. Y debo decir, sin subestimar la amistad de Rosario, que a partir de entonces surgió entre nosotros una bonita amistad. Conocí al profesor, pero también al ser humano que él siempre fue, un hombre culto y sabio, pero muy cálido y siempre dispuesto a escuchar. Ed me recordaba mucho a mi padre que tengo lejos. Ed siempre tenía esas palabras sabias y una espiritualidad que irradiaba y contagiaba. Sin número de veces visité la casa de Ed y Rosario para platicar con él. Él siempre me recibía con la calidez que a él lo caracterizaba y con alguna de sus bromas. Yo podía llegar abrumada contándole sobre todos mis problemas o conflictos que tenía y simplemente sostener una conversación ordinaria. Y Ed siempre tenía la facultad de contagiarme su paz espiritual y hacerme sentir mejor. Ed tenía un gran corazón, profesaba compasión hacia cualquiera y fui muy afortunada, entre tantos otros de sus amigos, de tener siempre un lugar reservado en su mesa durante muchas celebraciones de días de acción de gracias y cenas de Pascua. Ed siempre se aseguraba que Rosario reservara un lugar para mí en sus cenas de días festivos, en esos días en que los amigos ocupan ese vacío de la familia que no se tiene cerca. Se fue Ed, mi amigo, el hombre cálido y sabio, y se le extraña, pero por la huella que él dejó al andar, será recordado y vivirá siempre en mi corazón. Hasta siempre, querido Ed.
Such beautiful words for Ed DeSantis. Ed also invited Carol and Layla, always invited us, Ed and Rosario, to their parties. And I love to be in your living room with your great hardwood floors and dancing up a storm with him. The song that we're going to sing is translated on the back of the sheet. We sing this song, it's called Todo Cambia, Everything Changes in Life. And And this is a beautiful song that talks about the beauty of change and the importance of embracing that change. So there's a part that says, cambio, I change, todo cambia. Cambio, todo cambia. We would love it if you would sing with us. Cambia lo superficial, cambia, cambia en lo profundo, cambia el modo de pensar, cambia todo en este mundo, cambia el clima con los años, cambia el pastor, su rebaño, y así como todo cambia, que yo cambie no es extraño. Cambia el más fino, brillante, de mano en mano su brillo, cambia el brillo, el pajarillo, cambia el sentir un amante, cambia el rumbo, el caminante, aunque esto le cause daño, y así como todo cambia, que yo cambie no es extraño. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambio, todo cambia. Cambio, todo cambia. Cambio, todo cambia. Cambio, todo cambia. Cambio en su carrera cuando la noche subsiste, cambia la planta y se viste de verde en la primavera, cambia el pelaje, la fiera, cambia el cabello, el anciano, y así como todo cambia, que yo cambie no es extraño. Pero no cambia mi amor, por más lejos que me encuentre, ni el recuerdo ni el dolor de mi pueblo y de mi gente. Lo que cambió ayer tendrá que cambiar mañana, así como cambio yo en estas tierras lejanas. So sing with us. Cambio, todo cambia. Cambio, todo cambia. Cambio, todo cambia. All right, we can hear it. Cambio, todo cambia. Cambio, todo cambia.
I really appreciated Ed's gentleness and in listening to these beautiful tributes. Such a Renaissance man. How do you sum up a life? It's not the things that you do for people, and it's about how much you love them. Did I dance? Did I sing? Did I do everything I promised myself I would do? Did I care for my body Listen to my own heart. Did I thank all the music, the sound? Did I follow the stream and learn from each dream? Did I help Mother Nature along? Did I laugh? Did I cry? Did I keep asking why? Did I learn from the stars up above? Could I see? Was I blind? Did I know my own mind? But most of all, how deep did I love? With this moon shining down here upon the snow, I'm aware of the air that will flow, and the fall of the curtain, but still I'm not certain exactly where I would go. Still I long to strip off my disguise, for someday I must close my eyes. And I know I'll be asking for some satisfaction before I return to the sky. So did I spend time with children? Did I grow old with grace? Did I thank Mother Earth for each flower? Did I honor my family and study each phase? Did I celebrate youth and power? Did I play with the creatures on earth here with me? Do I know what we're really made of? Did I make my friends laugh? Did I stay on the path? But most of all, how deep did I love? Did I make my friends laugh? Did I stay on the path? But most of all, how deep did I love? Thank you, Ed.
Rosario, mil gracias. I was just listening to that music and thinking about how much Ed would be enjoying it, how much Ed undoubtedly is enjoying it. Trying to think of what I could say about that might be unique about Ed. I guess one thing I could point out would be that Ed was a faculty fashioned trendsetter. Take a look. Ed was, I think of all of the people that I met at UNM, Ed had the most consistent commitment to students. In honors, we're very committed to students, and it's always part of our conversations, but students are mysterious. And the learning process is mysterious, and the whole business can become frustrating. And it's easy to, in faculty meetings, sort of ignore student input. Ed would always, in all circumstances, would say, we have to think, what is going to be the impact of our students on this policy we're talking about? Always, always, always. And that's one thing that I think really, that I saw as really setting him apart. Ed was, I think it's his religious training. He was devoted to good works. and so devoted that it didn't necessarily mean that he had to do them as long as they were rocking along. When he became faculty senate president, I became a faculty senator at that same time, and we were at a faculty event of some sort, and Ed came up to me and he said, Mike, we're organizing this faculty club. It's really important because we need to increase the communication between the faculty, between different departments and so on. We really need this. It's important. I'd like you to go to this meeting. So what can I say? I went to the meeting, and I ended up being vice president of the faculty club for 2 years. Ed arrived at the meeting 20 minutes late, just as we were announcing who the officers were going to be. And good works were in progress at that time. I think that I'll always carry a very fond place in my heart for Ed, and I know everyone in the room does. I'm just imagining him in this space, which seems such an appropriate space for him.
Hello, my name is Christian Macaron. I graduated from the University of New Mexico Honors Program in 2009. What I loved about the honors program is that it allowed me to work with professors who were outstanding scholars and individuals, and it allowed my peers and I to work in an environment that prioritized creativity and nurtured dreams, more so than any other university experience that I had. Dr. DeSantis was truly one of the most remarkable and insightful teachers I have ever had, and I feel blessed to have known him. He was one of the people who influenced and encouraged my dreams. I took his course, The Phenomenology of Love, in 2008. This class was a meld of philosophy, personal experience, and creativity, and the experience of the human connection. This class, more than scholarship, I think encouraged an exploration of the heart. Dr. DeSantis was a true teacher. His insight was humble, thoughtful, and contained always in a few sentences guidance that would change our hearts as well as our minds and inspire laughter. This particular class influenced me indefinitely. I still read the work that Dr. DeSantis presented in that course, and through the various changes in my life and relationships, I still ponder the phenomenology of love or connection in its variables. However, I think the most important memory of Dr. DeSantis that I have was at my honors thesis presentation before I graduated. Encouraged by many of my professors, including Dr. DeSantis, I had decided to apply for MFA programs to pursue my own study of creative writing. This was something that I desperately wanted, but it was something that became a point of contention between myself and my parents, who, though they were always supportive of my work and my art, and agreed that it was important, were worried that it would never pay in the form of a career. My father came to the honors forum to see the thesis presentation, and after the program, when I went to greet my father and give him a hug, Dr. DeSantis came over immediately to introduce himself. He told my father that he was extremely proud of my work. that my writing was beautiful and that he knew through writing that I was going to do great things. And though those words were a great honor to me, I don't know how he did it, and I will never forget that moment because he changed my father's mind. And I don't know anyone else that it could have done so that easily. I'm extremely grateful to have been able to know Dr. DeSantis and learn from him. I know he will be deeply missed by all who knew him. Thank you.
My first thought when I heard that Ed had died was how sad that he had such a brief retirement. I wish that he and Rosario had had more time to be together, relax, and travel. I know that they had many plans for retirement, many of which will not now come to fruition. However, the trade-off for the brevity of Ed's retirement was his long and extraordinary academic career. Ed loved his work, especially his teaching. He loved his students, and he sometimes spoke of them as his children. He loved ideas, sharing them and discussing them. He was a true scholar and a wonderful mentor for hundreds of grateful and fortunate students, some of which we've heard from today. I knew Ed primarily as an administrator and as a faculty senate president. Initially, when I was department chair, I first met Ed when he was the associate dean of the graduate school, and I was immediately impressed by his kindness and his caring and his wisdom in that role. I got to know Ed even better through the faculty senate. I was faculty senate president immediately before Ed was, so we worked together closely on faculty senate business for several years. But a little footnote here, what Cheo said about Ed's role in creating the faculty senate was something that I never knew. It speaks to Ed's humility, I think, that when I was faculty senate president, I had really pushed to try to get a faculty club, but there were other things going on, like the faculty senate at that time was trying to get the Board of Regents to pick someone other than Caldera to be president. Actually, we were mostly preoccupied that year with the presidential search and so on. But anyway, Caldera became president. Then Ed became president of the faculty senate. I stepped down. Shortly after I stepped down as faculty senate president, I got a call from the President Caldera's office saying that the president would like to meet with me about a faculty club. So, of course, I went, and it was President Caldera and I think a couple of vice presidents. He said, I want to talk to you all about the possibility of creating a faculty club. And so one of the vice presidents there said, well, first thing we need to do is to make an application to the Space Allocation Committee and try to find a space for the faculty club. Caldera said, you don't understand. We're not going through any committees. we're going to find a space immediately, like this week. We're going to get started. We're going to make a faculty club by the end of this year. And we did. And I at that point, stepped in and worked on it and helped, find the space and select the furnishings and so on. But I never knew that that was Ed's. And I always wondered, what was it that changed Caldera's mind? And I think that speaks to Ed's humility. And Ed and I were still working closely to one another. It was something he hid from me, really. I mean, he could easily have said, oh yeah, I went and did that, but he didn't. Anyway, back to my prepared remarks. Ed was a wonderful representative of the faculty, reminding us always of what is truly essential to the university: scholarship, teaching, love of ideas, integrity and fairness in all of our interactions. Faculty senate presidents are inevitably embroiled in campus politics: money, power, misconduct, controversy. Ed managed to largely stay above the fray of this petty politics by staying consistently grounded in decency, morality, and wisdom. He was calm in the face of controversy and always thoughtful and insightful in his decision-making. He was a wonderful role model for me and for many other faculty members. And so upon reflection, I find myself less saddened by Ed's brief retirement and more grateful and appreciative of how long and how well he served UNM as a teacher, scholar, and administrator. We were all a little better because of Ed. And because I still feel Ed's presence in this room, I would say, not in the past tense, but in the present tense, we are all still a little better because of Ed. So thank you, Ed.
My name is Nicholas Starr. Usually when I'm talking to a microphone, I'm telling jokes, and so this is a little bit different of a context. But I think we'll get through it. It's been a nice morning of catharsis for all of us. Most of us know Dr. DeSantis and as an instructor or as a colleague, but all of us experienced that relationship change to mentor or friend. I don't know if my story is atypical or not. It's probably far from it, but I'd like to share my first interaction with Dr. DeSantis and how our relationship grew. First time I met Dr. DeSantis was at the honors student orientation, and I knew I wanted him to be my instructor when he was being introduced, and the introduction was taking too long, so he pretended to hit the person with his cane. I thought that was pretty cool, but then the instructor, or the person introducing him, went to hand him the microphone and kind of treated him like a fragile, frail old man. Ed wasn't having it. Just jerked that microphone right away. Started talking, I was like, that's the guy I want to teach me. I was fortunate enough to be able to take his seminar on wit, as well as his seminar on the idea of the holy. I didn't know I would learn more than the subject matter in his classes. I never really experienced anything like that from an instructor or from a teacher. Yeah, I learned math, I learned science, I learned how to read, but beyond that, kind of had to learn everything on my own until I got to Dr. DeSantis' class. It was his class that I learned about wit and about the idea of the holy, but I also learned about myself. I learned that you didn't have to be afraid of emotion. You didn't have to think emotion is going to be something that makes you weak. He told me that I was a good writer, which meant a lot to me because I'd never heard that before. At one point he told me, for a brute of a man, you have the soul of a poet, which from other people would have been kind of a slight, but from Dr. DeSantis, I took that as a huge compliment. And one time after class, I was in the honors forum, probably eating a sandwich that was too big for me or something. I always did that. And he came up to me for no real reason. And he comes up and he's like, how often do you write for yourself? I told him, practically never. I'm taking classes, so I have to write for those. He said, you're wasting your time here. And that motivated me to start writing for myself. And in turn, it allowed me to pursue a passion. Passion is something that I'm willing to lose sleep over. I'm willing to skip meals for. I'm willing to put money into that I'll probably never see again. And I've never had one of those before until I found stand-up comedy. So writing for myself led to that passion, and I directly blame, I guess, Dr. DeSantis. The thing about Ed was he showed that with proper confidence and motivation and compassion, anyone has the capacity to be great, even if it's a brute like me, So thank you, Dr. DeSantis.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Trujillo, and I'm going to be reading some words on behalf of my brother, Simone Trujillo. Hello and good morning. My name is Simone Trujillo. Although I am unable to be with you all in person today, it is my honor to share some thoughts and memories with you about my good friend and mentor, Ed DeSantis. I graduated from the Honors College in 2003, and I currently teach in the English department at New York University. I mention this because it leads me to a simple yet profound declaration about my friend. I would not be where I am today if it not for DeSantis. DeSantis was the first teacher who had made it possible for me to believe that I could read and write for a living. I was the first in my family to attend and graduate from college, so I cannot overstate the importance of this. I first met DeSantis when I enrolled in his Ancient Legacy seminar in the spring of 1999. This was my second semester at UNM. During freshman orientation, I learned about the Honors College and the liberal arts courses it offered. I knew I wanted to enroll in honors because the only thing I knew back then for certain was that I wanted to take classes that let me read literature. I had always loved reading and was planning on double majoring in English and philosophy, so naturally the honors courses spoke to my emerging and ongoing passion. In that seminar, DeSantis modeled critical inquiry in a way that upended my entire world. His patient and gentle classroom persona, coupled with an intense demand for rigor in our arguments, clarity and elegance in our writing, and imagination in our reading. I was someone who received good grades in my high school English classes and was used to being praised for my writing. DeSantis, however, systematically tore apart the first paper I wrote for him. His comments filled the margins. He critiqued my cliche word choice. He corrected my shoddy grammar, and he exposed my faulty logic. And he took me to task for my lack of argumentation. In fact, no matter how hard I worked on each of my papers that semester, the result was the same: lines and lines of handwritten counter-arguments, corrections, and questions, all with a detailed summation of my paper's shortcomings on the last page. Each time I was disheartened, but never discouraged, because I saw something else in his comments that I could not ignore. I realized that no one else had devoted so many words to my words, or given so much time and thought to my thoughts. It at once laid a beat down on my ego and made me more eager to read, to think, and write. I began to visit his office hours for help and to pick his brain. If he was in his office, I would stop by unannounced and ask him questions about our readings and the ideas I was learning in other classes. I would ask him about his favorite novels, or his thoughts on Greek philosophy, or on the existentialists, or his interpretation of Charlie Chaplin films. You name it, I asked it. I became a relentless pest. He nonetheless was always open to my visits and generous with my naive questions. By the time I took my second course on comedy and film with him a year later, it was evident how much he had taught me. I earned an A on each paper. And on the last one, which I still have, he wrote that he was impressed with my progress as a writer and would like to discuss my further scholarly plans over lunch sometime over the summer. That comment paved the way for DeSantis to become one of my dearest mentors and friends during my undergraduate career and beyond. Although I never took another class with him, he opened his home and life to me. We maintained a multi-year friendship built on a shared love of inquiry on literature, art, philosophy, religion, politics, and life in general. When I graduated, he helped advise me as I charted my way to graduate school and wrote the most heartfelt and supportive letter of recommendation on my behalf. As a Catholic, DeSantis showed me that faith and critical thought are not incompatible. He taught me, rather, that complacency and dogma are the actual forces that deaden critical thinking. Through countless moments of generosity, humor, and insight, he showed me that faith underwrites the most daring and iconoclast thinking one can undertake. It deeply saddens me that I won't be able to pester DeSantis in his office again or exchange thoughts with him over a meal on the dubious state of US politics. But although I miss my friend dearly, I have no doubt that DeSantis endures. He endures because he modeled an integrity and generosity to his life and work that endures in us. DeSantis showed me that a love of ideas must be built upon a love of people. And in this way, our collective celebration of his life today and in the future is evident that he materialized that lesson in each of us. Thank you for your time and attention.
My name's David Oberg. One of the many friends that Ed DeSantis had, or has. Dear Rosario has extended a wonderful honor by asking me to say a few words about Edward DeSantis, especially our relationship with music. Now, Rosario, I've conducted hundreds of concerts in my life, but I always knew that Ed loved music more than I. And I thought that was great. I think Ed would believe wholeheartedly, as I do, quoting Heinrich Heine, "When words leave off, music begins." So where shall I begin using mere words? Ed and I met thanks to a mutual friend, William Seymour, UNM Professor Emeritus of Music and Music Education, and my music ed mentor, but Ed was my mentor in life. The friendship Ed and I developed flourished through music. Over the years, as we explored music together, we branched out into the humanities, history, religion, and by the way, with Ed being a Jesuit and me being a fallen Lutheran, that was sometimes very challenging for me. And the art of learning, which helps me no end when I'm dealing with a first-year medical student who's shaking. But above all, we had, or rather still have, a steadfast bond through music. There are three masterworks Ed and I spoke about most frequently. One was Richard Wagner's Die Walküre, one of the four operas comprising Wagner's mighty ring cycle. With its awe-inspiring music, it tells the story of the curse-inflicting Wotan, king of the gods, as well as a godly metaphor for the misuse of power. Now, Ed and I shared similar political views, almost identical, so that was fuel for the fire. We did also get a kick out of Wotan's children in the opera, Siegfried and his twin sister Sieglinde, meeting for the first time in Act 1, and during the intermission to Act 2, managing to have an incestuous affair. Now, in opera, you have to understand that anything is possible as long as you sing about it somewhere along the line. The second was the Ninth Symphony of Gustav Mahler. It is music that comes from another world, perhaps from eternity. On YouTube, after a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner, Ed and I listened to the great conductor Claudio Abbado perform the Ninth. I invite all of you to do the same with the wish you too will share the transcendental experience Ed and I felt we had that Thanksgiving evening. Ed, in his classes, in the honors program, always tried to connect students with their emotions. I recall Ed telling me he had played a DVD of Leonard Bernstein conducting Mahler's Resurrection Symphony. At the conclusion of this symphony, with its hope for everlasting renewal, many in his class were crying. Ed was very happy and very proud. For our third masterpiece, Ed and I always threatened to have, and these were his words, a good sob together by listening to Richard Strauss's Four Last Songs. Songs suffused with an abundance, suffused with autumnal glow of calm, acceptance, and completeness. Alas, that precious opportunity slipped by. Yes, when words move along, music begins. But allow me to conclude with words by quoting a portion of Hermann Hesse's Going to Sleep, which is set to music by Strauss in his Four Last Songs. And my unguarded soul shall soar to heights untold, to live within night's spell deeply 1,000-fold.
This is from Susan Clare, one of Ed's students. Dear Rosario and family members, members of the University of New Mexico community, and other cherished friends of Ed DeSantis, I apologize for not being able to attend today's memorial service. I hope you will accept my written contribution to this memorial as a token of my treasured friendship and respect for Ed. The 1997-98 school term was my last as a University of New Mexico undergraduate, and it was also the term in which I met Ed DeSantis. When I was enrolled in honors courses, he was teaching, one in the fall and one in the spring. Each was a senior colloquium that included a service learning component, and both were inspiring and meaningful to me. The fall course focused on art and beauty in their many forms, and the spring course was about law and God in America. Because the fall course was my first with Ed, and it explored various art forms, all dear to my creative heart, it left the greatest impression on me. For both courses, I wrote a total of 24 weekly essays, each roughly 3 pages in length, based on course content and expanding into deep personal explorations. I so appreciated that my weekly efforts were generously rewarded with illuminating comments handwritten by Ed, a weekly gift that I always looked forward to receiving. After Ed's passing last month, I opened my file of UNM honors papers to reread my essays, and more important, to reread Ed's thoughtful comments, ever encouraging and insightful. In one of my essays, I wrote that our regular Tuesday evening class was like an oasis for me. Time and space preclude my sharing all of his comments, but I'd like to include one that was a response to my essay on Mahler's Second Symphony, also known as the Resurrection Symphony. Excerpt from my essay number 5, September 30th, 1997. Humans are given many opportunities to experience death before actually dying. Most of us deal with death on an intimate basis several times before we ourselves die. A parent, close friend, work associate, child. The first time we were confronted with the news that someone dear has died, a feeling of anxiety may be the first evidence of emotion, the first step in dealing with something we can't truly know. For now, it is all in the mind. This week, death has been on my mind more than in recent months. Listening to Mahler's Second Symphony was my first reminder this week that death is part of life. My personal reading at this time is a novel called A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest Gaines. Listening to Mahler's Second Symphony, I didn't feel as though I was listening to funeral music. It seemed like a parade or a march, except for the fifth movement, which had angelic notes and heavenly vocals. So I thought, what is funeral music? Envisioning a simple memorial service on my behalf, no somber or traditional funeral music for me, I'd prefer to listen to Mahler's upbeat and unusual Fourth Symphony, or perhaps Brach's Violin Concerto No. 1, or Smetana's Moldu, or maybe something fun like Zap Mama. I was moved by Mahler's Second for its elegance and strength. In many ways, the symphony reminded me of my grandfather, who recently died, because it contained elements that I have often used to describe her, my grandmother, her intelligence, strength, kindness, and faith. I know she would have enjoyed the vocals in the fourth and fifth movements. The words, "We come from God and return to God," would settle in our heart and be confirmed by her faith. And now an excerpt from Ed's handwritten comments to me on that essay. Death in Mahler is a prominent theme. His monumental work, The Song of the Earth, puts death into the perspective of nature and earth. Mahler saw death not as an end. His artistic representation was not from birth to death, but instead life to death to life. Could death be a transition from life to life? That is, from life with death, contingent life, to life without death, transcendent, heavenly life? If I accept this, then I conclude that Mahler is an artist whose dominant theme is life. Are we afraid of death because we really don't know life? I am curious why so many of you, the students, return to the experience of youth when listening to Mahler. I often ask how the young, the children, experience beauty. Could an element of childhood, beauty, be in its constant freshness, that life doesn't include its opposite? In conclusion, I'm pleased that I can still reread the kind and instructive comments he wrote at the end of my 24 honors essays. I'm filled with delight and gratitude to have been one of Ed's students and then one of his friends. Ed touched each of us in unique and generous ways. The memories of those interactions will live on within our hearts. I always felt that Ed's own dominant theme, like Mahler's, was about life in its inherent abundance. Whether finding joy in his dearly loved family and friends, encouraging his students, traveling and appreciating all forms of art, and of course listening to his favorite operas, Ed lived his earthly life to the fullest. We can best honor him by doing likewise. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Felisa Monta. I'm going to read something that I wrote as soon as we found out that Ed passed. It's from the heart, and even though I want to be strong, it's still so fresh. But I want to share with you this. I will always be thankful and very humble to say that I was blessed having been given this opportunity to meet Ed and Rosario De Santis. I came to Albuquerque in the fall 2008 as an international graduate student. I wanted to start my master's degree in the United States. It was my first time living in the United States in a different country. So Rosario, who invited me to live with them, was kind of a blessing too. I never expected. I ended up being more than a friend or a guest friend in this case. I ended up being another member of the DeSantis family. I had the privilege to share both of their friendship, guidance, and I say it from the heart, Rosario, your guidance was very good in the academia, and Ed's was most importantly his affection, because Ed became not only my mentor, my host father, it was a second father to me, and later to my husband Jeff, who for reasons of work, he can't be here. He was very sorry that he couldn't make it. Anyway, I had that privilege to see that, to share his discipline, his full dedication to his students, his job. He inspired me to do more that I can. Because, you know, when you have patience, that patience that he used to have, that determination and a lot of integrity is always inspiring. I saw him working long hours at his desk after dinner, even until after midnight, while reading his students' papers or writing even letters of recommendations for former students who usually used to ask him to write letters of recommendations. And he didn't go to bed until he finished that, sometimes even close to 1 in the morning. And I used to witness that because I was a graduate student, also overcoming my first time with a language, with experience of graduate studies here, and just under the excuse to take the dogs out for a little pee or something, and he was still working there. What an amazing man was he. Even though I was not his student, which I always cherished the idea how wonderful would have been to be in his class, I perhaps had the privilege that most of his former students never had, to share his care and his wisdom as a close friend and as a guest daughter. His sudden departure has broken our hearts, and it is hard to think that we won't see him anymore. However, I know that he will live on in every one of us whose lives touched by his warm and caring personality. I always thank God that I was given this opportunity to have Ed DeSantis in my life, and also for his fatherly encouragement that set me on the way to achieve my academic dream. Because at the beginning, I thought that after I got my master's degree, I would go back to my country and just continue. But he pushed me, and he was so kind to speak to me how the life would be if I get a PhD. So I ended up applying for a PhD and came on 1 year later after my graduation in December 2010. I came back in the next fall, 2011, and I am here preparing for my comprehensive exams now. So that's why I'm so thankful, and I thank God for having given me this angel, because for me, he was an angel that protected me during that time. I am very sure that he will continue taking care of me, of Rosario, his very beloved son Tristan, by the way. Olivia, I have to share this with you because a couple of times we shared together, he used to tell me how much he admired the strength of women, but especially the women that have changed the lives of the people that he loved so much. He really loved you and admired you a lot because he said that you changed Tristan's life for the best. And he always encouraged me like that, because he knew that, when we live away from our land, from our countries, away from families, he understood that. And he said, you are a strong woman. You are extremely intelligent. You can do this, you do this. Can you imagine you have been so far here and you are going to do that? And I'm very sure that he will continue taking care of us. And from heaven where he is. And I want to say that rest in peace, dearest Ed, because your legacy of love and care for others will always guide my life. Thank you.
Hello. I want to read some poetry, a poem by Dylan Thomas, and then I will read something which I put together recently, and it's because of Ed, I think, that these thoughts came to me. For one, that we were both familiar with Dylan Thomas, the the poet from Wales, who used to go to the White Horse in Greenwich Village, which is apparently a place that Edward lived nearby and would go to. So, Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying, how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sung the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way, do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my Father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. These are the few words I put together thinking about the time I'd met Ed back in the 1980s when I came to New Mexico. Like many other people, I was a stranger, a wanderer from Wales. And so these thoughts are connected with this. The White Horse. Greenwich Village is where we met, in the White Horse. Metaphorically, of course, a Dylan Thomas shrine, mine and Ed's that is, in the discourse of music and poetry, a matrix of black and white or green and blue, the rich-grained gray-toned tune of our modal affections, fixed in cemented reality on the plain of a New Mexico plateau. The musical mood, a model born out of the fusion between a father and a son. A generational thing to bring together the sword and crown of academia in glorious, adrenaline, enriching revolution. Building the ivory tower higher and higher, mandated in classical chords, block by block, stimulating, vibrating strings and ringing bells, singing in their worship. We met, Ed and me, in an ancient sea of desert frosts, lost to the pulse of noisy city distractions, and lured by the lilting voice of spring, both water and literal bounding, leaps across time and history. Now he is singing with his Lucy on the other side, Los Otros, in his heavenly vaulted chamber with Wagnerian tuba orchestral sounds lifting up the spirits of angels, writing the melodic line. Thank you.
So, since Ed challenges us all take on new things. Carol and I decided that we might join the club. And we don't sing opera. So you're gonna get folkish. In the last 2 weeks, we decided, all right, I'm gonna take on this challenge. And it's quite a challenge. This is a piece called The Flower Duet. See if I can find the translation. The Flower Duet from the opera Lakme by Delhi. And the English text translation is, under the thick dome where the white jasmine with roses entwined together on the riverbank, covered with flowers, laughing in the morning, let us descend together. Gently floating on its charming risings, on the river's current, on the shining waves, one hand reaches for the bank. Where the spring sleeps and the bird sings. Under the thick dome with a white jasmine, calling us together. Be patient with us. This is a really tough song for us. Carol and I sing, obviously, in harmony, but we're going to do our best. It's going to be a folk opera kind of thing. This is too new. Rosario asked us to sing this one last song. And both of these songs will take them on, we hope, in our regular repertoire. So this is the Izzy version from Hawaii of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Please sing along with us. Sorry, nobody's. So please sing along with us. Ooh.
would be delighted and humbled by this beautiful celebration. So as we leave, we'll wave at him on our way out. Thank you. Muchas gracias todos por todo. Pero I especially want to be grateful to the Honors College and especially Dr. Celia Lopez Chavez and Leslie Donovan for organizing this event with Rosario. And a special thanks to Celia for the beautiful flowers and to Cheo Torres and the Office of Student Affairs for providing the catering for the reception. And speaking of the reception, please join us, all of you, at the University Club, which is 1923 Las Lomas, and it's at the bottom of your program, that away. And I'll just end with a very short poem that reminded me so much about Ed, what he would say, and it's called Afterglow. It is by an unknown poet. I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly down the ways of happy times and laughing times and bright and summer days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun, of happy memories that I leave when life is done. Thank you, everyone.